All right, guys. So today it's going to be a combination of a road trip, cool old vintage stuff, uh, picking up some cool stuff that I've been after for a while. Just a mixing pot here today. So I hope you'll hang in because we're about to take a road trip to go pick up some cool vintage. Um, let's call it a tool because I don't know what else you would refer to it as. That I've kind of had in my mind I wanted for a while and finally tracked down some, and I'm going to take you along with me as we go to get it. Hang in there. I think some of you might find this interesting. Maybe not. We'll find out.
I'd say it's a nut job.
Okay, so today we are headed to I don't think it's still an active race shop. It used to be a race shop. Um, and I'm going to pick up what turned into racing history. This item was never actually made for racing, or at least I don't think it was ever advertised for racing, but it's something racers adapted to their platform. You know, racers are kind of inventive, and they will make outside of the box things work. I don't think the old F-150's been on the channel in a long time. I never drive this thing anymore. But you can see we got the trailer hooked to the back of it. We got the trailer hooked to the back of it because the fella said I'd bring a trailer. So without giving away what we're going after, I'm going to give you a slight hint because some of you guys are fairly smart and will probably come up with it. This is a photo of the original Petty workshop, as in Richard Petty. This photo was taken several years ago. You can actually go there now, and it's kind of like a museum. You can walk around and see things. Check out how low the ceilings are. They didn't start out with much, but they turned it into a lot. Anyway, in this photo is the item that I am chasing. It is what started me down this wormhole. It's all the hints you're going to get. All right, so that little photo is all the hint that I'm going to give you as to what I'm going after. I know this kind of stuff, may not excite a lot of people, but I am an absolute fanatic about the way things used to be done, the old school ways, and things with racing history. All that stuff fascinates me, and I'm going to do everything I can to try to keep that part of history alive. So I'm on my way to pick up something that we will say is some racing history, and I hope some of you at least find it as cool as I do. And man, I'm excited. I've been after this for a while, and as always, it's something that I'll put to use and I'll be using. Y'all hang in there. Let's do a road trip. I love these old shops like this. Man, I love old vintage gas stations and old vintage garages. I guess I'm just living in the past and stuck there. I love these old things. Woo! Check out a Trino. For sale too. Another one of those cool vintage old gas stations sitting over there. Looks like it might have been a Texaco at one time. Got the glass side on it and all. Love those old buildings. You know it's going to be good when you turn on a dirt road going up through the woods. Yeah, you know you're going to a good place. All right, well, it's obviously dark now. We just got everything loaded up. I didn't ask the man permission to film his location, so I didn't. I won't put somebody on camera that I don't talk to about it first, and it slipped my mind and I didn't, so I wasn't gonna put him on the spot. This is an old race shop. He's been retired out of the racing business for several years now. And he gave me a list of some pretty well-known drivers that their cars were set up in that shop, which is freaking mind-blowing, knowing that I've got something that was used on some well-known cars. It also never hurts that he gave me a box of other random race parts he had laying around, because he said he's just done and just getting rid of all the stuff and being done with it. He's going to focus on farming. I applaud that. Nothing wrong with that. So if we get somewhere where we've got some light, maybe I'll pull over and show them to you. If not, you'll have to wait till, in the morning or like a minute from now for you. And I'm definitely going to show them to you, because I am uberly excited. Is uberly a real word? I don't know, but I'm that if it is. And I geek out over racing history stuff and being able to own stuff that has racing history. I geek out over. So y'all hang in there. It ain't over with you yet. We got something for you to see. Alright, I'm going to give y'all a sneak peek only because I want to check the straps. But you're going to have to wait till I get home to get all the details. Left front, left rear, right front, right rear. Well, there we are. I've made it home, and I'm going to run in the house, catch 40 winks. I will see you guys first thing in the morning when we get to look at the loot. I'm so excited. All right, so it's early the next morning, and we got to get our new to us scales off the truck and into the shop. I got to move the ramp truck first, but then we're going to look at these things. At least one of them still has the tag on it, and see what information we can get off of it and give you a little bit of history on these things. All right, so I got to move the ramp truck first. It's right in front of the door of the shop, of course, right where I need to go. But, there is a long history of using this type of scale in racing. Actually, more than I even knew about. And, man, I am just so into the racing history part. I can't wait to get these things off and show you what they are and all about them. First off, it's kind of cold out here this morning, or at least cool. So let's see how old Cooter's going to treat us this morning. I'm a big believer in people get overly excited when cranking a carbureted vehicle. And this thing hasn't been cranked since we hauled that truck down south. One pump. That's it. That's it. Don't touch anything else. That sets the choke when it's done properly. And then turn the key. They crank right up. Just because it's got a carburetor on it don't mean she's hard to crank. Also, forgive me for being one of those guys wearing flip-flops. I've never worn anything but boots in my life. But I have a toe injury. How silly does that sound, a toe injury? it's recommended that I allow it to get some air. Well, I can't walk around barefooted. I'm not 12 years old anymore. So I got to get stuff done, and this is the only option. Y'all overlook it for one time, all right? Okay, so here, what we have is 4 grain scales. These are Howell Richardson grain scales. There's 2 different versions. There's 4 scales. There's 2 exactly alike and 2 more exactly alike, but all are Howell Richardson. Now, I'm no grain scale aficionado or anything. I just know what I wanted, and through the research that I've done, they made these grain scales from 1868 to 1963. There's serial numbers on them, but the serial numbers don't give me a whole lot yet. I can dive into them at a later date and see if I can find out closer to dates. These 2 right here are the oldest ones. These 2 right here are the newer ones. These 2 right here, if I had to guess, would be closer to the 1963. It would be closer to the 1960s dates. These right here, the way they're made, I would say are the earlier ones, just by the way everything's made on the bottom and all, and the iron wheels and all that stuff. I would say these are the earlier ones, probably before 1900. Now, these are all, he used these. These are all been well used, and they're in phenomenal shape other than just being dusty from sitting where he closed down his race shop. Very, very, very simple to adjust. They were all calibrated before he put them away. He showed me how to calibrate them and said, you know, if I was you, I would double check everything before I used them. But again, very simple to use. And he has them all labeled from how he done them. This one is the left rear, right front, left front. He's got them all labeled. That way he used the same scale, the same wheel every single time. I have been absolutely searching for a set of these scales for a while, for a couple of years. And I either find them that people want way too much money for them. Well, let me rephrase that. Maybe they don't want way too much money for them. They want more than I can afford to give for something that really has only value to me, I would say. These things sell, I see these things selling all the time for about $350 a piece per scale for one. He cut me a great deal, and I paid less than that for all 4 of these. And he gave me a bunch of other stuff. And it basically comes down to he's retired. He's quit doing any racing stuff. He's got rid of the cars. He's got rid of the tools. He's got rid of all the stuff. And these were just a few of the things that left laying around. And when he gets rid of this stuff, then that area can be used for agricultural purposes. This man is bought into farming now, and that's all he's interested in doing. I don't blame him, honestly. But let's take a look at these things. But first, I'm going to take you down the wormhole that I went down with these particular scales. All right, so what's the deal with this particular set of scales? Well, for me, it started on that wormhole with that photo that I showed you. Well, not that photo, but me seeing that scene in person. Richard Petty had his car set up on 4 grain scales, and that's how he set his car up for racing. Now, I had never thought about that, but apparently that was just common knowledge around the race community, which is one reason I'm bringing you, or at least the old school race community, which is one reason why I'm bringing this video to you, because this may be something that you have not thought about, and it works. So I seen that photo, or that image. I seen that in person, that car sitting on those 4 scales. And I'm like, what is that? What's the deal with that? I was told, grain scales. That's how everybody used to weigh race cars back before modern digital scales and all that came out. I'm like, never thought about that. But I wonder if it's really, if it's really accurate, if it really works. It sent me down this long wormhole. And I know there's people out there right now going to swear, oh, that don't work, that'll never work, that'll never work. Follow me down the wormhole. I didn't make this decision overnight. Like I said, this has been 2 years. I started looking into it. One thing I found is that a lot of like dirt track racers and small time circle track racers, like local tracks like our Anderson Motor Speedway up here, they still prefer these scales. They still use these scales. That there's racers out there, excuse me, that there's racers out there in 2025 right now still using these scales. And I'm going to be one of them. I'm going to tell you that. But I got to digging into it. I'm like, okay, so what about the accuracy? Well, they broke it down. I have to have things broken down in visual for me. I'm not so much a paper learner. You take a 50-pound weight and you put it on a digital scale and it says 50 pounds. You put a weight on here, slide this over the 50 pounds, and it balances this bar over here on the end. It's the same. It's just as accurate as anything else. The real difference between modern scales and these scales is you have a screen you can look at and go, oh, okay, that was this, and this. Okay. You don't have to get out here and go, oh, slide this over, slide this back. Nope, right. Nope, oh, there's a sweet spot. Oh, let me add a little weight here. You don't have to fiddle with it. This requires personal input, where modern scales don't. Modern scales, you just get on them. Plus, they have a screen that's wired to them so you can sit in the driver's seat and look at it. Because you really want to know the weight with you in the car to help set everything up. Well, with this, it either takes 2 people because you have to sit in the car while somebody else works the scale, or you get the weight with the car empty. You know what I'm saying? So, and you really want it with it full. So this does require more effort and is a little bit more work, but they are just as accurate. And I'm willing to hold that tight. I have put enough research into these to know these are just as accurate. There's guys out there right now that have set up their. I talked to a guy just yesterday who still sets up his drag race car with a set of grain scales, and will tell you when he rolls across the scales at the track, it's the same. That his grain scales are just as accurate as those scales. So I'm not in the least bit worried about the accuracy. But when it really comes down to it, here is the deal for me and what I'm really, really excited about. Of course, I've got to clean them up a little bit. They're dusty. That's just all dust on top of them. They're dusty from sitting for a couple of years and all. I'm going to oil everything up, all the mechanism, and I'm going to make sure they're still calibrated right. But for me, the visual of my 63 Ford sitting on 4 of these scales, just exactly like it would have been back in the 60s when it was getting weighed and set up for the track. For me, that visual is so powerful. Listen, I understand everybody believes modern stuff is better. And you're not going to be able to convince some people that this stuff works just as good no matter what you do. I understand this isn't for everybody. But for me, a guy that really wants to keep that history alive, this is worth so much more than money to me. I can't describe how excited I am to have these scales. And here is the kick in the pants, the reason I wanted these scales. And again, not necessarily what everybody would do, because a grain scale is probably a grain scale. I don't know. I imagine that, like everything, different manufacturers had different levels of quality. But then again, you think about it. Stuff made in the late 1800s, early 1900s, everything was probably great quality. There probably was no subpar quality. But here's what I do know. Howell Richard Petty used that brand. If Richard Petty could use that brand and set his car up, then I can use that brand. And I know, everybody's thinking about the Richard Petty that retired that had already won 7 championships and that owns Richard Petty Enterprises, or did. I don't know if he still does or not. I know you're thinking about that guy and all that fancy modern electronics he had, but he started out his career, and there was probably more than one championship won with a car sitting on those scales. Howell Richardson scales. I don't know, but think about this visual. Put this visual in your head. My 63 Galaxy, 4 of those under the tires, getting weighed, the Holland Moody banner in the background. Man, that visual is as good as it gets right there. I mean, I'm loving it already, and I ain't even done it. And let's be honest, if those scales, once I calibrate those scales and get those scales dialed in, and they may be perfect exactly the way they are, I can't imagine any reason why they wouldn't be. But once I calibrate those scales and verify that they're perfect the way they are, and I put a car on them and I weigh the car, if we go to the track and it's a pound or two different, I don't really care. Heck, a gallon of fuel is 8 pounds, so you can adjust fuel level if it's fairly close. I don't really care. What that will allow me to do is put my car on those, and if I take something off, put something on, they're going to be right with each other. So if you take a pound off, it's going to show a pound lighter. You put a pound on, it's going to show a pound heavier. You know what I'm saying? It's going to show you that the car is either gaining or losing weight. Also, what that will show you is when you look at it, you're going to be able to go, the front of this car is this much heavier than the rear of this car. You know, I need to move some weight this way. Or the driver's side is this much heavier than the left side. I need to move some weight this way. You know what I'm saying? Right side. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying. It will allow me to set the car up and set the suspension up and all these things in the shop much, much better. It will allow me to, when I show up at the track, to be much better prepared, because these will allow me to set things up in the shop that I haven't been able to do in the past without phoning a friend kind of thing. Hey, buddy, can I borrow a set of scales? I need to fiddle with some things. It will allow you to do that. Now, I know this isn't for everybody. I know I'm not going to cause people to mass run out and buy Howell Richardson scales or grain scales in general. I know that's not what's about to happen. But what I do know is that there may be a lot of people out there that don't know this part of the racing past, the racing history. I'm going to pass that knowledge along, and I'm going to do what I can to keep the old ways alive. Is it the best thing in the world? No, it's probably not, but I don't think it's any worse than anything else. I mean, these things are amazing. And the look on the 2 earlier scales, see, I know the two are really early because that's a cast iron base and it's got the ornate legs on it and everything. The other 2 are metal and just squared off. But as long as they're all calibrated the same, they're going to all weigh the same. These scales are really and I know, again, people will debate this, but there's really no way for these scales to be inaccurate once they're set up. If you understand what I mean, they all have to be the same because it's just a beam with a weight on the end of it, and all you're doing is centering that beam up. These things have no choice but to be right. And there's a screw down there that you can work that screw and calibrate these things. Maybe I'll show that on a future video how you calibrate them. But once you take, say, a 50 or 100 pound weight and move from one to the other and calibrate that thing, it doesn't know any difference. It doesn't know that the scale right across from it was made a different year. It doesn't know that. All it knows is 50 pounds is this weight to right here. That's all it knows. It doesn't know anything else. They have no choice but to be accurate. You're not going to measure ounces with this thing. I mean, you probably could if you had some fine newt weights. I'm sure you could. I'm not really. I'm after pounds. You know what I mean? So I'm not really that finite. Finite. Maybe it's finite. Maybe it's, yeah. I don't know. I ain't worried about her. She'll do what I want her to do, which is tell me the weight of the car. The bonus here is I know what that car weighed before I put that engine in it. And the engine in it was iron headed. Now, it did have an aluminum intake, but it was iron headed and everything. This engine in it now is got a lot of aluminum in there. How much difference does that make? I don't know. I know what the car weighed before. It's got to be lighter, right? By something. So I'll be able to find out how close they are because I know what the car weighed. End of the day, guys, I'm pretty excited about these. I'm going to do this one video, and if you're interested in seeing a video on how these things are calibrated and how they work and all, then drop in the comments and let me know, because I'll be more than happy to do a video on these things because I'm excited about these things. Now, again, people tend to like the more modern stuff better. I understand. Digital screen, digital readout. You can push a button, it'll tell you percentages. You can push a button, it'll tell you weight. You can sit in a seat and look at the screen. Everything fits in a case about this big. You just got little shelves for your scales and one for your little board, and you got a little carrying case and all that stuff. I understand that. These things take up space. They do. These things, you know, you kind of have to get out and manually adjust and do everything. For you to weigh inside the car, you have to have somebody with you that can help you. I understand that these things may not be as practical, but I do believe they are every bit as good. Man, I can't even pretend to hide my excitement to have these things. I love them. I'm proud to own them, and I want to. I don't. I'm trying my best not to mention any names because, again, the guy didn't. I didn't talk to the guy about any of that stuff. I didn't want to invade his privacy, and maybe he doesn't want people to know he's partnering with stuff because people would worry him to death. But I am so excited that he gave me a deal of a lifetime on these things. Like I said, I've looked on eBay and places at these scales, and I've seen them where they'd be missing a piece or not have the little weights with them. So you got to have little weights that hang off the end, little counterweights. This guy had, not only did he have the weights that that you normally see with them, the small weights, he had big weights. He had all kind of weights to go with this thing to get them right. So not only did he have the weights, not only did he have everything with him, I've seen these things on eBay and places for sale where they either need calibration, they need work, they'd be missing weights. And I've seen these things bring as much as $350 a piece. And I can't afford that for a set, for what, for four. Because when you start getting that money, it's just as cheap to buy a used set of digital scales, or cheaper to buy a used set of digital scales. But he cut me a deal on these. I'm not even going to lie to anybody. He cut me a deal on these and sold me all four of these for $250. I'm not. There's no argument with the man. He's willing to make me a deal. And then when I got there, he's like, "I ain't racing no more. You want this? You want this? You want this?" He said, "I just want the rest of this stuff out of the way." I'm excited to own these. And this goes also real quick to what I've been trying to say before about passing the knowledge and stuff on. Once he was to the point where he was no longer going to make use of these, he's seen that there was a guy out there that was just as passionate about racing and racing history and using this stuff, and it wasn't just a reseller, or it wasn't somebody trying to make a quick dollar, or it wasn't somebody that was just looking for something to display in their house. He's seen another guy out there that had the same passion that he had at one time, and he was willing to pass a deal along. So that's how we keep the next generations interested, is we keep passing this stuff along. I've rambled on enough. I'm excited about this stuff. Guys, I can't thank you enough for watching along with this and being part of this. Please drop a comment, a like. Please share these videos. This is the kind of stuff that if we don't show the next generation, this stuff here will be forgotten about. Please remember to subscribe. But yeah, definitely share this along, because This is the stuff that either young people may not know about, or what happens a lot of times, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody and I'm not trying to be negative with this comment, but what happens a lot of times is people automatically think because it's the old way of doing things that it won't work, that the new way is the only way. These things still work. And when it comes to weight, 100 pounds is still 100 pounds. And as long as it shows that on this scale or on a digital scale, 100 pounds is 100 pounds. When it comes to this, as long as they work as the way they're supposed to, it's just as good. There's no downside to this other than you have to be more involved in this process. And to me, it's worth the extra effort to stay involved in a process just to keep the history alive. God bless you guys. I hope the Lord bless you more today than He did yesterday. Thank you so much for following along with this. Guys, I cannot thank you enough for all of you that follow these adventures. And if you want to see these things in use, please drop a comment. If you want to see some calibration stuff, if you want to know anything else about these, please drop a comment. I will be more than happy to do any of that stuff. God bless you guys. Him be the glory. And guys, we will see you on the next one. I am so honored. I'm so blessed behind these. I'm like a squirrel that just found a whole just pile of acorns. I'm so excited. We'll see you guys.
I'd say he's a nut job.